Welcome to the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel. I'm your host, ArmaniTalks. In this channel, I'm covering communication skills for you to level up your way with words and become much more articulate. In today's episode, we're diving into the land of content creation, and I'm going to be talking about the dangers of niching down too much. Roughly around 2019, there were a few accounts on YouTube that were blowing up. You know what these accounts talked about? How to grow on YouTube. I mean, these guys were talking about how to get more views on your videos, how to do search engine optimization, how to get the right thumbnails, and much more. And I could see it. I mean, these guys were going from 5,000 to 10,000 to 25,000 to eventually 455,000 subscribers, and some even reached the coveted million mark. Soon, as these guys were building up their accolades, what happened was that they were getting their plaques. Once you get a certain amount of subscribers on YouTube, you start to get these awesome award-looking stuff. And when you see it, because the videos are one thing, you can't touch the video, but when you can touch this plaque, it makes you more invested in whatever got you this plaque in the first place. This is when a lot of these YouTubers doubled down on what was working for them. They tried to create more content on how to build on YouTube. They niched down more and got more laser targeted. And that was their path back in the days. Nowadays, in 2023, at the time of recording this video, many of those channels completely stopped uploading. And the few channels that do still upload, they still talk about how to grow on YouTube. But unfortunately, you can't necessarily control that too much, because growing on YouTube is more so an output metric. So when you're trying to optimize too much for an output metric versus the input metric, then chances are eventually you're going to stagnate. So these folks are talking about how to grow on YouTube, but they stopped at 1 million. They never reached that 2 million, 3 million and such. So it's like, you're not necessarily the best resource to hear about this from. And here's the other thing. Another group of people that niched down too much in 2019, I would say that they went crazy. Not literally speaking, but they just got fed up. And eventually they rebelled against this niche. They started to talk about other things. They started to do daily vlogs. They started to talk about mental health. They started to talk about things that interested them. And that's when I noticed, when you niche down too much, this is what a lot of great content creators preach. They're like, you need to niche down because where there are niches, there are riches. And you know how the mind works. Whenever we hear a rhyme with a little bit of wisdom, we latch onto it. It becomes a core philosophy. And unfortunately, many just niche down too much. I don't think niching down too much is bad, but it really depends on what you're trying to do. If you're trying to, let's say, get rich quick, then niching down is one of the best things you can do. I actually know a guy that has review sites of cameras. He basically builds it once and then he'll add some content here and there, and now that site is continuously paying him back. He's not reviewing blenders or smoothies or anything like that. It's hyper niched into cameras. But let's say that this guy wants to eventually expand, because eventually what's going to happen is that more sites that review cameras are going to start popping up. And now this guy needs to broaden his focus just a little bit more. So he's like, well, how about rather than just talking about cameras, I talk about lighting as well. Because people that are going to buy cameras most likely need some lighting. Yeah, let me repeat this process. And now they're making reviews of popular lights that you can get in order to complement your videos. After that, they're like, okay, well, what else? What about SD cards? That's basically the cards where you store your videos in. How about I review some of the best SD cards out there? And now this guy is going from a hyper niche to cameras to now widening his focal point. And now he's seeing something else. He's like, whoa, from all the different review sites that I have, there's a theme that's underpinning everything. And that theme is a starter pack for YouTubers. So this is a person that started off hyper niched and eventually was able to expand into a theme. I'm capable of talking of something like this because when I first started ArmaniTalks in 2018, I was just a public speaking guy. I mean, I recall whenever I wrote a thread on public speaking, did a video on public speaking, it did well. I got services on public speaking and such. But by the year 2 to 3 mark, I had to think wider because you could just talk about public speaking for so freaking long. So that's when I started to see, wait a minute, if you can conquer speech anxiety, then you conquer social anxiety in the process. So public speaking is spilling over to social skills. So I now began to talk about social skills, and I noticed that whenever you're dealing with humans, they have a thing called emotions. Emotions are what? What's the difference between physical sensations and emotions? Emotions are physical sensations plus a story, storytelling. And now I'm starting to learn about storytelling. So I started off at public speaking, did social skills, emotional intelligence, storytelling, and much more. And a theme is being presented. And that theme is communication skills. Now with the theme, I'm capable of talking about it from multiple angles that I couldn't be able to do simply with public speaking niche alone. I think machines are great for specialization, but I think human beings are great for themes. Machines should be optimized for perfection, while human beings should be optimized for imperfections. And you can't be imperfect where you're playing around, trying new things, if you have locked down into this hyper-targeted niche. For certain businesses, that works. But I noticed for highly creative businesses, which requires YouTube, blogging, podcasting, and much more, niches eventually become something that makes you rebel against that niche. Eventually, even creating content on that particular niche disgusts you, like it does for a lot of these YouTubers that either vanished, self-imploded, or eventually had to do a theme. They're just like, I just don't want to talk about YouTube growth anymore. I did as much as I could. So just factor that in. You may be at that stage right now where the niche is great, but every now and then try to look around the corners. Do you see a possibility of this niche eventually becoming an enemy to you? If so, you don't need to make any drastic changes yet, but at least think about a theme. I wonder what niche this niche can plug into. What niche of this niche can this niche plug into? Just like that review site guy from before. And eventually, as you're playing around with this, you get a theme. And from that, you can decide to do whatever you want to do next. It's just, if you're one of those guys that is tired of the niches, it's completely normal. It's a thing that a lot of creators face. But what you do next is completely up to you. Thank you very much for joining the ArmaniTalks YouTube channel, and I'll catch you next time.